Welcome to Unmasking Masculinity, the podcast that delves deep into the various facets of masculinity. In this episode, we'll be exploring the intriguing topic of defining traditional masculinity. Join me as we uncover what masculinity has meant traditionally and how it has been perceived within society. We'll also examine the societal norms that have been closely associated with traditional masculinity and discuss their impact on individuals. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel for even more content.
Women are not built to handle masculine problems. Being vulnerable with a woman is some of the worst advice that modern day women give to men, because if I sit there and I cry to you, oh my God, my life is hard, blah, 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 you might sit there and console me for a bit, but deep down you're like, you fucking bitch. And you're going to go and find someone.
That is so not true. I know.
So you're saying that what he's saying is incorrect?
No,
that a guy should
shows
cry in front of
vulnerability is so powerful.
Again, this is a common example of women saying one thing but doing another. They're saying this right now because it's politically correct to say, you can cry to me, you can be vulnerable to me, etc. But deep down, if your man came to you and was crying on your shoulder saying, I don't know what's going on, her vagina's gonna... Can I finish? Her vagina's gonna dry up. She ain't gonna want to fuck with him anymore. She's gonna look for a stronger, more capable man, because women are designed to look for security.
Just because they cry once, bro?
Hey man, I can't tell you how many times we've brought girls on the show with their own, they tell us on air, one time my boyfriend cried in front of me and I never looked at him the same.
So guys, I wanted to play this video clip, this sound clip, to kind of lead into today's episode, as it does impact what today's episode is about. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start defining what traditional masculinity is. And to understand traditional masculinity in depth, it's crucial to examine its fundamental elements. It encompasses a set of culturally established attributes, behaviors, and roles that have been historically linked to men and boys. These characteristics reflect societal expectations and ideals regarding how men should behave, present themselves, and interact with the world. One prominent aspect of traditional masculinity is physical strength. We all know bigger muscles get the prettier girls. That's what kind of gets women going, right? You know, they're always talking about like how The Rock has the biggest deltoids or whatnot. And we're just like, why are they spraying him down with baby oil all the time in all of his movies? But throughout history, physical prowess and the ability to exhibit physical power have been valued attributes associated with men. And the idea of being strong and capable has often been intertwined with the concept of masculinity, emphasizing the importance of physicality as a defining trait. And you see this in both historical and modern era sports. Modern era sports being, you know, your football, basketball, baseball, soccer, rugby, weightlifting. These are all like all the sports that are like where these guys are cut up or they're lifting heavy weights or, you know, they're doing some sort of like crazy physical labor. But historically, we've seen it as well. We've seen it as like the Roman gladiators or, you know, in Ireland or Scotland, the Highland Games, or, you know, we can take it back to like the UK or across Europe with the medieval jousting and sword fighting. And that's just to name a few, guys. So this isn't something that's like a new thing. You can see it all throughout history. Another characteristic that's commonly associated with traditional masculinity is courage. Men are expected to display bravery and face challenges head-on without showing fear or vulnerability. And this perception of courage aligns with the notion of men as protectors and providers, emphasizing their role in safeguarding their families, communities, or even their nations. And we've all read the fairy tale stories that the daring and valiant prince is to fight some sort of overpowered antagonist to save the damsel in distress. Or, you know, to kind of bring it to reality, the more common, babe, it's 3 a.m., I heard a crashing noise, go check it out. And we're just like, ugh, come on. It's 3 a.m., I'm half asleep and in my underwear, but sure, babe, sure, I got you. And we do these things because we're conditioned and taught to. And in our heads, we watch these scenarios and say, I wish a dude would. And I know for me personally, I'd go so far as to say I've played these scenarios out in my head so many times. I can confidently say if a situation was to arise, I'd be mentally prepared for it. But, you know, you never know. Then again, Mike Tyson said it best when he said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So let's hope I never have to test that on my mess around and find out meter, which leads us to the next aspect of dominance. Dominance or assertiveness is often regarded as an essential trait within traditional masculinity. Men are encouraged to assert themselves in various domains, including personal relationships, professional environments, and societal interactions. And the expectation of dominance can manifest through leadership positions, decision making, authority, or the ability to influence others. Emotional control is another aspect emphasized in traditional masculinity. Men are often encouraged to suppress or hide their emotions, particularly those that are considered vulnerable or associated with perceived femininity. And the idea of emotional stoicism and self-reliance has been ingrained in the concept of traditional masculinity. Sometimes this results in men feeling compelled to suppress their authentic emotional experiences. And I'm guilty with this with my kids. My middle son plays football, and myself and the coaches will tell the boys, if you're in pain, upset, pissed off, scared, you do not show it. Now, I've started to modify how I teach my kids this. I've started saying, in the moment, you shelf those feelings and emotions. You're on the field to do a job, be upset, be pissed off, be irritated, or whatever it is, but don't you dare show that to your opponents. After the game, let's sit down, let's have a man-to-man, we'll work it out, and let's see what we can do to prevent this from happening again. Or if we feel that those emotions are going to overcome us in the moment, let's figure out how we can better control those emotions so we don't show our opponents that we have this vulnerability, this weakness. There's a time and place for it. I'm not saying that, you know, you should be vulnerable all the time, but there is a time and place where you shouldn't, like in sports, you know, if you have an opponent that you're trying to go against, you obviously don't want to show them that, you know, they're getting to you in some way, shape, or form, because then they're just going to kind of build on that. And that's what I'm trying to teach my kids, trying to teach the team. And it's so important. And guys, if you're a dad, this is so important to try to teach your kids, like, as part of growing up and being a man. Like, there's a time and place to show your emotions. There's people to be around to show your emotions. But when you have an opponent standing in front of you, that is not the time to be vulnerable. That is the time to shelf it. We'll come back to it later when the fight is done or when the battle is done. Then we can go through. We can have our vulnerable session, and we can go through and we can fix and talk about and try to overcome the issue that we were having. And it's essential to recognize that these attributes, behaviors, and roles associated with traditional masculinity are not inherently negative or harmful on their own. However, problems arise when they become rigid and limiting expectations that restrict individuals from fully expressing themselves or embracing a broader spectrum of human experiences. So by understanding these fundamental elements of traditional masculinity, we can begin to critically examine their impact on individuals and society as a whole. This exploration opens the door for questioning and reevaluating these traditional norms, fostering a more inclusive and progressive understanding of masculinity that embraces a wider range of expectations, emotions, and identities. Now that we've kind of gone through what the definition of traditional masculinity is, let's take a look at the view of traditional masculinity in society. And for a considerable period, traditional masculinity has been held in high regard within society, often garnering a positive reputation. Men who conform to the prescribed norms of traditional masculinity are often admired and perceived as strong, successful, and worthy of respect. Again, let's take a look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You know, he's this big burly guy. You know, he's got huge muscles. He is successful. You know, he's done a lot of really great things. And this admiration is rooted in the notion that embodying these characteristics aligns with the ideal image of a real man. And that's what women, when they look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, like, oh, this is a real man. But however, it is essential to recognize that this perspective of traditional masculinity has faced substantial criticism in recent years. Many argue that it imposes rigid expectations on men, limiting their ability to express themselves authentically. The pressure to conform to societal norms can lead to feelings of internal conflict, as individuals may find themselves suppressing aspects of their true identity that do not align with traditional masculine ideals. Additionally, the perpetuation of traditional masculinity can contribute to harmful stereotypes and reinforce gender inequalities. So, by strictly defining masculinity based on characteristics like strength, dominance, and emotional control, it reinforces the idea that men should conform to a narrow set of behaviors and roles. And this can create an environment where men feel compelled to prioritize power, toughness, and competitiveness over emotional well-being, vulnerability, and nurturing qualities. So the limitations imposed by traditional masculinity can have a detrimental effect on men's mental health. And the expectation to always appear strong and unyielding can prevent individuals from seeking help or support when needed, leading to higher rates of emotional suppression and untreated mental health issues. And this, for me, is the biggest issue with traditional masculinity. Sometimes we need to be able to just talk about our problems. We as men carry the weight and the burden of the world on our shoulders. Sometimes we need to unload some of that burden. As we all know, we don't know everything, but collectively as a group, we know a lot because we've experienced a lot. And this is why building a community is so vital for the success and transformation of masculinity. Moreover, traditional masculinity can perpetuate harmful gender inequalities by reinforcing gender roles and expectations. When certain traits or behaviors are deemed exclusively masculine, it can limit opportunities for men to explore diverse interests or engage in activities traditionally associated with femininity. This reinforces a binary understanding of gender, where men are expected to be one way and women another, further entrenching gender stereotypes and hindering progress towards gender equality. So recognizing the criticisms and limitations of traditional masculinity is crucial for fostering healthier and more inclusive societal norms. Embracing a more nuanced and expansive understanding of masculinity allows individuals to express their authentic selves, free from the constraints of rigid gender expectations. It also opens the door for men to actively challenge harmful stereotypes, advocate for gender equality, and engage in nurturing and emotionally fulfilling relationships, ultimately benefiting individuals and the society as a whole. So, guys, thanks for hanging out this far in the podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify so you can never miss an episode. Engage with our thought-provoking discussions, insightful interviews, and expert perspectives that will inspire and empower you on your own personal quest for growth. We value your feedback, so don't forget to leave a review. Your thoughts matter, and your input will help shape the future of the show. Together, we can create a platform that amplifies the voices of men who are breaking barriers and redefining what it means to be masculine in today's world. Looking for a supportive community of like-minded individuals? Join our Discord server where you can connect with other men who share your desire for personal growth. Engage in meaningful conversations, seek advice, and foster genuine connections as we navigate the challenges and triumphs of masculinity together. So now let's take a look at societal norms associated with traditional masculinity. And a crucial component of traditional masculinity is the set of societal norms that have developed and become intertwined with its concept. These norms encompass a broad range of expectations, influencing how men are expected to behave, perform, and fulfill their roles within society. And one prevalent expectation is that men should be the primary breadwinners, responsible for financially supporting themselves and their families. And this norm stems from historical divisions of labor, where men were often assigned the role of providing for their households, while women were primarily responsible for caregiving and domestic duties. And this expectation places a significant burden on men to prioritize career success and financial stability, potentially limiting their choices and opportunities in other aspects of life. And if we go back to the previous episode of the podcast, I mentioned a scenario that's all too common for many men. A guy works 80 hours a week to provide for his family, but because of this, he doesn't get to spend time with his family. His wife leaves him for not being around, takes the kids, and the rest is no fun. We're taught to prioritize our jobs, career, and focus on making money over making memories and spending time with our family that we work so hard for. Another societal norm associated with traditional masculinity is the idea that men should be devoid of emotional vulnerability. Men are often expected to suppress or downplay their emotions, particularly those deemed as weak or feminine. And this norm discourages men from openly expressing their feelings, seeking help when needed, or engaging in emotionally intimate relationships. and it can lead to emotional isolation, mental health struggles, and difficulties in forming deep connections with others. And this takes us back to the clip I played at the beginning of the show. The speaker on that clip gave what I'm calling a half-true answer about how women react if we want to be vulnerable with them. What he didn't go into was how men perceive other men. And I don't know about you, but I've always got a buddy or two on speed dial when I need to vent. I don't really do it with my wife, and it's for the reason the guy in the clip was saying. I don't want my wife, the person who looks to me for protection and strength, to see me at my most vulnerable. But I will reach out to one of my buddies because guys know guys. Guys know the types of struggles. Hence why building our Discord community is so important to the mission of this podcast. This podcast wants men to feel comfortable talking with other men because, not to sound misogynistic, but most women cannot understand the issues we go through, just like us men cannot understand the issues women go through. And sometimes it takes another man to help a man in need. And as such, we should never look down upon a fellow man struggling with mental health issues. We should embrace them as you would a family member and help him overcome what they're going through so he can pay it forward and help that next guy. This is how we save lives, build better marriages, better families, and ultimately, guys, we build a better society. Now, physical strength is also an expectation embedded within traditional masculinity. Men are often encouraged to be physically strong, demonstrating power and dominance. This norm reinforces the association between masculinity and physical prowess, emphasizing the importance of muscularity, athleticism, and the ability to assert physical dominance. It can create pressures for men to conform to certain body ideals and engage in potentially harmful behaviors to achieve an idealized masculine physique. And a key case study for this, I saw this quite a while ago, but you can actually look this up on the internet. There are guys who are injecting their arms and body with these like oils. It's almost like vegetable oil. It's really weird. But they inject it into their arms or they inject it into their pecs, and all it does is try to make them look like they have large muscles. And you might be thinking they're just too lazy to put in the work. And I would be inclined to agree with you. But they are struggling with a mental health issue. They're struggling with they're struggling with the thought that they have to conform to what society believes is physical strength. Fine. You want to have big muscles, but there is no shortcut to getting them. Work out, that's all you can do. But if I was to meet these guys, I would be like, look, man, I get what you're trying to achieve here, but there's a better, safer way of doing this. Let's go to the gym. Let's get swole together or something like that. But we want to get them away from hurting themselves to achieve what they perceive is what society wants them to be. Now, conversations around gender equality and the importance of breaking free from rigid gender norms have gained momentum. And this has led to an increased awareness and acceptance of men engaging in caregiving roles, expressing emotions, and prioritizing mental well-being. Men are now more encouraged to seek support, explore a wider range of interests and pursuits, and actively participate in nurturing relationships. And like one of these societal norms that is, it wasn't a norm, but it's starting to become a norm, like men being in caregiving roles, right? So I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan. I love Jim Carrey. I love all of his movies. But if you've ever seen the movie Yes Man, you'll see one of the characters is a male nurse. And every time they mention it, they snicker at it. And at one point in the movie, Jim Carrey is actually, he's a banker. He's a loan officer. And this guy goes and sees Jim Carrey to get a loan for a Ducati, which if you don't know is a motorcycle, to get more people to look at him different. So check out this clip.
Lee, what do you need? You may be my last loan.
Oh, it's a Ducati. I'm thinking it'll get people off my back about the male nurse thing. See what I mean?
Yeah. Nice ride.
This is what we have to start moving away from and accept both men and women can work jobs that were traditionally labeled as gender specific. And by challenging these traditional norms, we create a more inclusive society that values individuals for who they are rather than adhering to predefined expectations based on gender. This recognition of diverse gender roles and expressions fosters greater acceptance, empowerment, and freedom for all individuals to live authentically and thrive in their own unique ways. It allows for a more expansive and enriching understanding of masculinity that is not limited by outdated stereotypes or restrictive societal norms. So to start wrapping up, guys, in this episode, we delved into the multifaceted realm of traditional masculinity. We have explored how it has been defined, viewed, and shaped by societal norms. While traditional masculinity has enjoyed societal praise, it has also been criticized for its limitations and potential harm. As society evolves, there's an increasing emphasis on embracing diverse expressions of gender and breaking free from the constraints of traditional masculinity. It's essential to continue these conversations and foster a more inclusive and holistic understanding of masculinity. So thank you guys for joining us on this thought-provoking episode of Unmasking Masculinity. We hope it has provided you with valuable insights into the concept of traditional masculinity and its implications in society. Stay tuned for more engaging discussions as we continue to explore the many layers of masculinity in future episodes. Remember, it's through understanding and open dialogue that we can truly unmask the complexities of masculinity. Take care, guys, and until the next time, y'all stay safe, gentlemen.